Right, so welcome to Channel Bit, everyone. Thanks for coming in and listening and everything like that. We have got a few people watching in that's actually part of this, and we will be putting this video onto his channel that's open to general public afterwards. We decided to basically show people how to construct a basic notice and what a notice actually is, and all the things that we will need to make it obviously private. So there's obviously two sides to everything, just like there is to, like, you get left and right, you get up and down, and just with writing paperwork, there's two sides to that as well. So if we got an A4 sheet of paper and we put it into half first, then we'll get two sides to that document. And if we look at on the right hand side, for us, whoever's on the right hand side of the document is known as the creditor. But whoever's wrote on the left-hand side is the debtor. So we've always been taught through schools to sign on the left, which means that we're signing as the debtor. And our name and address will always be at the top left, which means that we're addressing us as debtor. And they seem to write on the right-hand side. So if we looked at that two sides, when creditor and debtor, then we can see that clearly on the bottom where we've put as signature, shall we say, and then we would attach his autograph there, which is his thumbprint. So we're just differentiating them two sides. Well, a notice to start with means a contract basically, and any notice holds its terms and conditions. Now, whenever we're sent a presentment, usually in an envelope, then in that envelope is a name written on it inside the window, and we've got to look at that as being the coffin for the dead entity. Because if a person is just a name on a birth certificate, then the birth certificate is the vessel and the name is the cargo. Now, when we've got a presentment in an envelope being the coffin and that name being the person which is within that window, it's only us that's now going to open that and open that up as if it's a ledger, like a tombstone. And all tombstones are written in all uppercase capital grammar. So when we get a presentment from someone, it could be in a white envelope, which means it's public, or it could be in a brown envelope, which means it's private. Now, in public, we've got 9,700,000 statutes and acts. And in private, we can make it up as we go along. We just can't do any harm to any others. So there's quite a big difference between two sides. Now, if we're going to pretend this is an envelope, a presentment, then if we open that presentment, that means that we've already accepted that contract. Now, we've got a certain time frame to rebook these presentments, and we usually rebook them by... We can rebook them in many different ways. Usually they're asking for, say, 10 things, and we have to rebook individually all them 10 things. But we can rebook an entire document just using one paragraph, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So ultimately, we get this presentment, and it's going to have some form of notice on it, like penalty charge notice or statutory notice, or it's going to have some form of notice written in it, because it is a contract with terms and conditions on it, and they're, at the moment, they're only one-sided because the corporation has sent this, so they've written it, they're their terms and conditions, and then they present that to us, and we've got four things what we can do. Now, we've got on bottom left, which means that we can ignore this presentment and we can just put it into bin. Well, that means after we've gone past the 3 to 10 day time frame, that document's classed as been accepted because we failed to rebut it in a timely manner. So if we ignore something, we become dishonourable. For example, if it's a summons to court and we just throw it in bin and ignore it, then by us being dishonourable, we're dishonourable because this document that was just a presentment and implied prior to it coming to us, when we open it and accept it, it now becomes a contract. And if we fail to rebut that within 3 to 10 days, that silent acquiescence from us is classed as acceptance. So before we turn up to court, we're already dishonourable and we've already lost. So for any presentment, we're never going to ignore it. I mean, there's also another option on this corner, which means we can argue it. And if it's a case like court, when we're turning up to argue, we've gone past that 3 to 10 day time period, which means we're already dishonourable again, and we've lost before we've gone to court, just like ignoring it. Now, there's another option where we can accept it, but if we accept any presentment, we're accepting it for what it is. That means we're liable for it. So there's also one other option, and that is, it's called conditional acceptance. So that means we can accept this presentment on the conditions that we're now going to attach to it. Because if someone's presented us with a contract one-sided and we don't agree to it, there's no law can force us to contract. So if we don't agree to it, we'll change the terms and conditions and then send that contract back, and eventually we agree upon it. And that's what happens. So if the courts or the corporations, the authorities, so to speak, send us any presentment or any liability, then we need to rebut it within a 3 to 10 day time period. Now, how we'd rebut it is by, on the left-hand side is where we're going to write the corporation, because we're going to identify them as the debtor. And on the right-hand side is where we're going to use our details, like full colon Andrew full stop, or whatever his callings are. You know, we could use John of the family Smith. We could use full colon John Smith full stop. As long as we separate the Christian calling from the family calling, whether we use it by of the family or we use it by a full colon, makes no difference. Point is, we're separating them two entities. They're always going to address it to one entity, which is going to be John Smith as one complete name, or either a Mr. or a Miss before it, if it's Jane Doe, for example. So we're always going to write on right-hand side, and we're always going to write in correct structures. Now, depending what we're going to be rebutting will depend on what this title says here. I mean, with this notice in writing, we could just write with this conditional notice in writing. So it depends if we're doing a conditional notice or whether we're just doing a notice or not. Now, I don't know if there's any questions on that up to now. So that's pretty good then. So
Andy, you're speaking and everything's coming through on you talking, but you like Max headroom.
Oh, sorry, mate. It's probably my. We've basically.
Hold up, Ray wants you.
Go on, Ray.
What's the difference between a normal notice and a conditional notice?
Well, a normal notice is us. If we're the ones that initiating the notice, so we're going to start a contract with you, Ray. So that means it's a notice, but it's only implied at that moment. You've not even received it yet. So when you receive it, if you don't agree to the terms and conditions that we've written, then you will add your own conditions. So that means that you're going to add that notice on condition of your conditions. Right. You know, like when we write them 3 language structures.
Yeah.
So like I'm saying, so if we're good, it's never us that initiates it. It's always the corporations that start these penalty charge notice. So it's always them sending notices. Now, if we accept it for what it is, we accept all them terms and conditions that's on that document. If we accept it on condition and we give them some of our conditions, like you've done in that notice you've wrote, Ray, that ball's back in their court, and it's up to them whether they fail to respond within 3 to 10 days or not. Because if they do, your conditions will stand as a fact then, Ray, won't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I thought maybe there was a difference in the heading at the top, that was all. Yeah,
well, it depends, because if sometimes we might initiate a notice, Ray. You know, we might want to use a data subject access request, for example, or something like that. So it might be us that's having to start that notice. And we can't have a conditional notice. We are having some notice to add as conditions to first.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So like this, with this conditional notice in writing of the, it could be of the correction of a grammatical fraud, it could be of the correction of what constitutes as a name, it could be correction of we are not you. It could, depends whatever your head is going to be for whatever you're rebutting. You know, like in for example, if we're rebutting a supplier, then this notice in writing will be probably down to the 3 language structures what we tell people about, and identify the fact that they can only write in 1 language, but they're actually writing in 3 each time. We can touch on that. Obviously, we write in, if you look at this structure here, it's in what's called a lowercase structure. So when we're writing lowercase, what's classed as English, it's what's called a descriptive text. Now, when we're writing, we don't, but when people write in uppercase structures, that's the capitalized words, that's not descriptive text like lowercase English, that's illustrative text. And we've got to look at illustrations such like cartoons, photos on wall. Many things have got many interpretations. So it's quite obvious if we're doing contracts, we need to be in a descriptive text, not an illustrative, because one's got many interpretations, one's it is what it is. So, and if a contract is what it is, then that means it must have the dictionary disclosed to what them words mean upon it. Because if there's no dictionary disclosed for them words upon our contract, then they could be open to interpretation and they can't ever mean what we want them to mean. So part of this structure for this notice, and we did put a screenshot on, is we've got 3 paragraphs. As long as we've got these 3 paragraphs on our notice, then the middle bit, the blah, 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 is what we're going to write individually for our rebut, depending what we are rebutting. Is it Yorkshire Water? Is it utilities? Is it council? Is it court? Is it police? Is it... So it depends what it is. It'll depend what as blah, blah, blah is. So as long as we always start, now we've got to have this notice heading, and we'll put with this notice in writing of the correction of what constitutes as a name. Because if they're going to address an uppercase Mr. John Smith, by us giving a correction and correcting it to : John Smith, well, now that means that if they now write it in that structure of Mr. John Smith anymore, they're knowingly committing perjury by doing it. So I'm hoping people keep, so with this notice in writing is, it's whatever we're rebutting to. It's going to change every time we write a notice. But the 3 paragraphs upon it, as long as we keep them the same and we just change this middle bit, which we could talk about after, then this is how to correctly write a notice. So the first paragraph, which people will have seen from a screenshot, is, I mean, we're not like, we're going to address a man on this. We're not choosing that just because we're a man. We're not. It could have been a woman. We just use it as a fictional character to explain notice. But before this man known as Barry White, we're always going to put their name in speech marks if we're going to write it into a fictional structure. We're always going to put, I don't know if you could see that. Sorry. Can you see that before? So basically, if we're going to write a name that we've got from Company's House, that means that name is going to be written in a fiction sense, because it's going to have the Christian calling and the family calling joined together, because that's the only way Crown Corporation can recognise a person, using a Christian calling, a family calling put together. So if we're going to address some guy that we've only got their name from Company's House, then that means we need to put that name in speech marks, because if we're writing as a man and we're addressing a fiction, then it's not going to sound right good when we go around saying we can speak to dead. Now, if we're a man and we want to address a fiction because we've got no way of putting the correct name structure, then by us putting it in speech marks means that someone else has said it, and that means that we're no more liable for it on our document because we didn't say it. So if we're always going to say some fictional word or maritime word or statute or name or something like that that's not in correct capacity, always put it in speech marks because we're not liable for it anymore. So before this man has in speech marks, Barry White, close speech marks, in their private and unlimited capacity on this 31st day of this month known as March in this year of 2021. So if we're going to write as a man, that means that we're going to be full colon John, full colon Smith, full stop. We can't write to Barry White. We've got to write to full colon Barry, full colon White, full stop. If we're writing as full colon Andrew, full stop, on behalf of our bifurcated trust estate encumbered under Cester QV, known as a birth certificate person title, that means that if full colon John Smith is going to act as the representative for full colon John, full colon Smith, full stop, then that means that that birth certificate name is going to be in speech marks. But if man's addressing man, we always have to address man as man. Man can't address, like full colon John, full stop, can't address Mr. John Smith because Mr. John Smith's the person, a fiction. Full colon John, full stop's a fact. So if man's addressing man, he has to do it in correct capacity, and if woman's addressing woman, they have to do that in correct capacity. Same for man, woman, and vice versa. Now, normally we write to our fictional character first that we act for because it's got no energy to act for itself, and then we normally tell these people after and make them the third party. On this notice that we're showing people in this basic structure, we're not showing you how to do that because that's for the next level moving up. So like I'm saying, creditor is on right hand side, debtors on left. We've got a title of depending what we're rebutting, and then we're always going to address before this man known as full colon Barry, full colon White, full stop, in their private and unlimited capacity on this 31st day of this month known as March in this year of 2021, and acting as the chief executive officer for this corporation known as Yorkshire Water Limited, which we're just making up. So, right, it's important for us to thank them for their document received, and it's also important to tell them what day we received it, because if someone sent us a document 12 days ago and we've been on holiday for 2 weeks and we get back and we're already outside of that time frame of 3 to 10 days, by us making the date up of what we came back, which is going to be the day before we sent document, we now put that back into that timely fashion of 3 to 10 days because we're telling them we received it this day and we're now sending it tomorrow, which is within that 3 to 10 days. So if we're ever late on a notice, we can use that paragraph because it'll be in our terms and conditions that we did receive it actually on that day. So first paragraph's basically addressing them and accepting their document and putting what date we've received it. Now, second paragraph, with this kind thank you for the correspondence we now received on this day, the 29th day of this month known as March. So on second paragraph, I'm telling them that I received it on 29th, and on first paragraph, I'm telling them that this is when I'm sending this notice. So if 29th of March is when we received theirs, and 31st is when we rebutted it, that puts it within that 3-day time frame, doesn't it? So in this year of 2021, and in the form of what we believe to constitute as a proposed liability statement, and we now respond in this timely fashion. So by having them 2 paragraphs on there, one proves we received their document, and second most important fact is that we've responded to it in a timely manner. So that means we must be competent to deal with his business. We must understand all processes and timeframes in order to deal with his business. And we're also addressing ourselves and them in correct capacities, separating full colon Barry, full colon White, full stop, to Chief Executive Officer, which is the fiction. But either way, if they're in speech marks, we're never liable for it on his document. And that's why on this basic notice, I've not put them in full colon, I've put them in speech marks. Because if we ever going to write something, like I said, that we don't want to be liable for, we're not if we put it in speech marks. Now, if we ever write anything and put it into brackets, that becomes invisible on the document as well. So, for example, if we're writing a private notice and we want to include something that's like, if we're writing in New Oxford Styles English and we want to use a legalese word, then if we put that in brackets, then people might see it for what it is due to their ignorance. But if they understand that whatever's in brackets doesn't exist, then they're not going to see that legalese word, are they? So it's a trick to hide things, and these are tricks what the system uses upon people as well, or should I say persons. So as blah, blah, blah is going to become now individual to what we're rebutting. Now, I mentioned in beginning of the video that we can rebut absolutely everything on one document with certain paragraphs. Now, for example, if court are going to send a summons to a fictional character, they're going to have many, many presentments and many things to rebut. Now, for us to do it in an easy way would be, because when they're always going to say the word represent, but as much as they say the word represent, it actually means represent. And if they're going to represent us into a different character role, that means on summons where it said Mr. John Smith up here, or Mrs. Jane Doe or whatever, down here it's going to start addressing people as Y or U. So they're going to represent this Mr. John Smith or Mrs. Jane Doe to the character of you. And let's look at it like this. Johnny Depp, the man, gets a character script for Captain Black Sparrow, and he reads this script, which means he can perform and he can act upon it. If Johnny Depp was said, we're given a role to play in Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean, and they says, no, we're not giving you a script. You've got to make it up as you go along. I guarantee that the film would not have been, because he wouldn't know how to act. So if they're not going to tell us what the character Y or U is, character U is, and how to act, then that's why they're going to represent this character into the character of you or your, because so many years ago, we wanted to know what made a creditor a creditor. And the only way to do that is to look into banking. So into mercantile banking charters, we discovered that a creditor, a banker, will always identify themselves as we, us, or our. A debtor, therefore, will always be identified as you or your. And if we turn up to court and they've represented this Mr. John Smith or Mrs. John Doe into the character you, well, they've not given a script for it. We don't know how to act. So if anyone says at court and we're standing in capacity as a man or a woman, are you going to represent yourself? No, we're always going to be ourselves, because we always exist in the now time and we will always be ourselves. And they're never going to represent us into something that we are not, which is the fiction world. So if we wanted to rebut anything on a document, we know for a fact anything that comes from a corporation is going to address us as you or your. So on us, after these first two paragraphs, we could put on us blah, blah, blah. We could put, we believe you have made a mistake, for we are not you, we are we. So we return this document for you to give to you, full stop. It's up to us how we rebut it. We could put that under the Chicago Manual Styles, edition 16, article 11, chapter 147, that two languages, you can't have two languages basically on one document or it constitutes as fraud. So there's no jurisdiction for two languages appearing on one document under Chicago Manual Styles, edition 16. So under this blah, blah, blah here, we could highlight that lowercase, uppercase and algebra on their document. And then we could write in here that under the Chicago Manual Styles, we believe that you cannot use more than two languages on one document, and you have used three. Please explain, ? So it depends what our rebut's going to be, whatever is blah, blah, blah is. As long as we've got that first paragraph and second paragraph, we're going to be what we call honourable. Now, last paragraph's really important, because remember, this is our terms and conditions. So if this is our terms and conditions, we're going to make this last paragraph a strict condition. Now, this is really most important, because up to now, no one knows what language we're speaking or what we're writing, what rules we're using, or what anything means on this document yet, does they? Because we've not disclosed it yet. I'm just going to have to open this door because it's fucking red hot in the kitchen, I'm telling you. It's red hot. So, right. Right, so I'm going to read this out, but obviously everyone's got screenshot and they will be able to download this. So, for the knowledge of the grammar here being conveyed is with the use of the New Oxford Styles Dictionary for this definition and rule, and for the best of our and of the best of our belief and knowledge, and with this sound mind, and a strict condition of you using the same style for the voidance of not committing any perjury, full stop. So we're saying to them that we're using New Oxford Styles Dictionary, and that's what all these words mean up on this notice. So we've given you true meaning, and there's only one. We're also saying strict condition is that whoever now we're rebutting has to respond to us in this same structure using New Oxford Styles English, disclosing what the words mean. Now, how can a corporation that's fiction speak a fact language? They can only do illustrative text, whereas we as people write descriptive. There's a big difference. So an illustrative text is what's called sign. A sign is like that. One of them's a sign. There's many interpretations to it. A picture on wall like Picasso's drawn's a sign. There's many interpretations to that. A letter is a sign. A road sign, we see many of them when we're out on highway, as they call them. But we all know the postal roads and shipping lanes. They've just got to modify the facts into that what it's not, because they live in a fiction world. So as long as we're saying what language we're using, we're not committing perjury and fraud. Now, as long as we've put that this is to the best of our belief and knowledge, well, no one can ever get in trouble for anything they believe. And as far as knowledge is only limited, just like everyone's is. So by us disclosing that in our conditions, we can't ever be troubled for something we believe or any mistakes upon this anyway, because it's only to the best of our belief. Now, by asking them to write in strict style for avoidance of not committing perjury, well, they'd be committing perjury in many sense if they didn't give a dictionary for what words mean. Because a picture on a wall like Picasso, if Picasso were not in room, then if you stand 100 people there, they're probably all going to have different interpretations of what that picture means. But you get Picasso there and his exact mindset of when he created that art, and now you get true definition of what it means. Well, if we look at them pictures on the wall as being words on paper, then if we've not got that artist there, which means the dictionary, which then if we've not got that there, we're going to be open to interpretation, just like if we take Picasso out and look at that picture, aren't we? Is that sitting well with you, Alan?
Unmute yourself, Al.
Yeah, everybody's on mute, aren't they?
That seems to make sense.
There. Yeah, are you keeping up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so obviously that bottom paragraph is quite important for us, disclosing which dictionary we're using, and we're asking them to do the same, basically. Now, as you can see on bottom, we've separated. Now, we've put person's personal representative, and then we've put PPJ.S because we're acting as John Smith at the minute. Now, like we said, debtor always goes on left, and a fictional birth certificate character is a debtor, so we're going to put that on left. But if we write, reason we're putting the initials and we're not doing it in a cursive manner is because when we were trained to do a cursive manner signature at school and through his education, what that means is we're cursing document. If we curse a document, we void it. And reason why all contracts in fiction world have to be voided by a cursive manner signature is because it's a fiction world. So that's why no contract can. How can two dead entities even create a contract? So this is why they've got to be null and voided every time they are, and they teach us to do a cursive manner signature, which does it. Because if we ask you, Alan, or Ray, or anyone on here to do their cursive signature, and I showed it to someone that didn't know you and said, "Can you tell me what name that is?" They wouldn't have a clue because it'd just be a squiggle, wouldn't it? Yeah. So they've taught us to do that. So by us writing like we've done there, we just put it like by writing the J.S. We've not done it in a cursive manner, and that's still classed as a signature. It's just not in a cursive manner. Now, we've put PP before it. PP is this person's personal representative here. But the reason we write PP is because person's personal representative is the English descriptive text.
You're frozen, Andy.
You've gone off, mate. You froze after the person's personal representative.
PP stands for per curiationum document, otherwise we'd be creating fraud. Is it my internet that's gone? So,
Yeah.
so we've had to change that to person's personal representative, even though we'd put PP before the fiction. Now, the reason we're putting the PP before the fiction and not after it is because whatever comes before something governs it. So they'll always add Mr. before us, which governs it. They'll always add Judge before the title, which governs it. They'll add PC before the title, which governs it, and so on and so forth. So if this JS is a birth cert, which is a fictional character, then it's got no energy of itself. If we become just that JS, we're becoming that fictional character. If we write PP before it in lowercase, that means that the man acting as the person's personal representative is acting for it now, is no longer it. So if we look at a game of Monopoly, we've got the banker, which never rolls the dice. We've got the player, who does roll the dice. And then we've got the piece on the board. The piece on the board is like the birth certificate, the player at the solicitor, and the creditor ultimately is us, because it's our energy and wealth that the creator gave all energy to. You know, corporations have got none. So by adding the PP before it means that we're acting as like the solicitor who never goes to prison. The solicitor acting and representing for is never liable for out. So if we're person's personal representative, we're not liable for that piece anymore because we're representing it. So, but the person's personal representative, the PP before them initials, well, who's acting as that PP? There's got to be some energy behind it. And that's where this comes in. So now, with this here autograph by this man known as John, full stop, and then we've got to put dotted lines. We can't ever have a line like what they do, because when we do a line and we write a name on it, that's like a vessel floating in sea or space or ocean, or then they've drawn a line under it. So we've got to write on dots like them. And then on them dots, we'd get our red ink pad, we'd put a thumbprint onto the dotted line, which is there. And then across the thumbprint at 45-degree angle, we would write in blue ink, : Andrew with a capital A, lowercase NDREW, and then full stop. Now, as for stamps, these are just explanatory and for examples, but we use something of a whole value. Now, a whole value wouldn't be a first-class stamp or a second-class stamp, because that might be 0.97 pence or whatever. So we're always going to use what's called a pound, a whole value, or a dollar, or a euro, or so on and so forth. So as that whole value, this notice, this contract now, which is just a piece of paper, and it's only one-sided at minute by us, well, we need to make it goods. So, but to make it goods, we need to add value to it. So we would add a pound stamp. People usually put the stamps in the top right corner, but we're going to put it in middle just because we can. And we're going to put our £1 stamp in middle, which now makes this piece of paper now a value of £1. So this now becomes goods. This contract now becomes goods under corporate maritime law. Now on back at page, we've wrote all that stuff on just for this video, but ultimately on back of this one-page notice, we'd have a blank page. Now this is quite important. This, particularly when we're dealing with. Just read Richard's question. Hang on. No, black ink we don't use because black represents dead entities basically, which is a birth certificate with no energy of its own, or the Halifax Bank, which has got no energy of its own, a corporation. So we're never ever going to use black ink. Now, we always choose to use red ink, Richard, because red is the colour of the blood in our veins. But we cannot post blood. It's now bio waste since 1996 and 1997. So because we can't use real blood for as ink, we're going to use red ink. Now, some people use blue, now, and it's up to them if they use blue, but we know that there's red in our veins, and we know that blue represents water, which is maritime. So it's different people write different structures, and not everyone knows everything. We're not saying we do, but guaranteed our blood is red, and this is why we are going to use that colour. So on back at document, I hope that's answered your question for you, Richard, but obviously black ink, this is why corporations are writing black, because obviously a dead entity, a corporation, which is short for corporation, like a name like Mr. John Smith with a date incorporated, or Halifax Bank with a date incorporated. They're both pieces of paper with no energy of their own. So they're both fictions. And that's why they ask us to write in black, to represent that we're dead. And then in box where they get us to sign document, they'll put an X, because now we're witnessing his own death, because X marks that spot. But that's answered your question then, if you put a thumbs up. So on back of this one-page document now, we're going to have value of £1, which we're going to write as name through at 45 degrees after we've thumbprinted and claimed that. Because that stamp, we could take to post office, and we could ask the post office to cancel it out. We could then post that back to a special delivery, and there's a lot more advanced process for what I'm telling you guys, but obviously this is a basic notice writing lesson. So in a basic notice, we're just going to write, put a stamp on, put a thumbprint on it, put full colon Andrew full stop we'd put, and then we'd put a date upon it, which is important. Now that makes that stamp cancelled out, it makes us postmaster of it, and it makes this document become goods. Now, if this document was sent off as it is, and the judge saw it, the judge could turn that page over on his desk, and he could just be looking at this, which means he'll pretend we've not sent no in. Now, on back of this one-page document, if it were a two-page document, we'd already have writing up back, and we'd put another stamp down bottom corner here, and we'd put another stamp up top right corner here. That's your 3 stamps. So, but on this one-page document, with no writing up back, we're going to put a stamp at top right-hand corner. We're going to write his name through it in correct structure. Full colon Andrew, full stop with right. You could write the fiction like full colon John, full colon Smith, full stop. But we're going to autograph that with thumbprint. The thumb, that is your graph. So the word autograph, that's the graph. And the auto is because we're autonomous beings that's doing it. So on our autonomy with our graph that's what autograph. A signature is exactly the same. That's your sign, signature, sign. And obviously, like an autonomous being, it's our nature that does it. So signature and autograph, quite similar. But when they teach us to do a cursive, we're only writing it, but there is no sign or no graph upon it. So, and it voids it because it's illegible, shall we say. So on back, if we're ever doing a one-page document, we can never leave back blank. Stamp on top right corner, stamp bottom right-hand corner, name through it correct structure with thumbprint, date upon them, just like you've done on first document. So now we've got a document that was a blank piece of paper. It's now got words upon it, and it's now become goods because we've attached a £1 stamp, another £1 stamp, and another £1 stamp, for example. Now what we're going to do with this document is, because we're addressing the man, full colon Barry, full colon White, full stop, because we're addressing him in private capacity, that means that we need to use a brown envelope. A white envelope is for public. A brown envelope is for private. So if we're going to write to Mr. John Smith, we'll use a white envelope. We'll write Mr. John Smith on document. and we'll use a first class stamp, second class stamp, or recorded delivery. If we're writing to full colon John, full colon Smith, full stop, that means private, we're going to use brown envelope, and we're going to use this special delivery. Special is the only word in law that means private. So private delivery is what special delivery means. So them 3 points is what makes a document private. So a lot of people say to us, how'd you get in private? How'd you get in private? What they don't realise is they're already in private every time they're dealing with these corporations. You know, what we need to do is we need to stand in public and we need to do as business in private. So, so honest, let me get this out, and then I'll basically, I may as well put this stamp on, because if you want to do it correctly, properly using special delivery, then obviously we're gonna get this label, and there's two parts to it. We can either take this barcode bit off, or we can take this little number bit off, which is here. So we're going to take this off, and we're going to place it onto the bottom of our stamp, which I'll show you here. I don't know if you can see that. So we've placed it on bottom at stamp. I may as well document up. I'm shit with technology, me guys. So you can see that I put the special delivery from that label. I've put it onto the document. Now that proves, obviously, when I put this onto this envelope, which I'm going to put onto this envelope here, when I post that to myself, that document back to myself, and I attach that little sticker now to the bottom of the stamp, well, that means that I can prove the contract's been served into postal roads and shipping lanes, and I can also prove that there was something inside that envelope, can't I? So we're going to write as envelope in correct structure, attaching special delivery to brown envelope. We're going to attach little label to the bottom like that. We're going to thumbprint it. We're going to write calling, a 45-degree angle through it with punctuation, and then we're going to either date stamp it at post office, or if we've not gone that far and we've not gone to post office, we just write the date on ourselves. But ultimately, this, as it is now, we are any thumbprints, we are anything. This one's taken to post office as it is and asking them to cancel it out. I'm then meant to post this back to myself, and then once this is back to myself, I now take a copy of it and I now serve this to these people. That's what I should be doing. Now, it doesn't matter if we're not doing to extreme or what we should be doing as a judge on documents. It doesn't matter if we've not added a stamp to it, for example, because most of these presentments from these corporations are not worth paper they're written on. They've always been autographed in a cursive manner, and they're not autographs or signatures to start. There's no one ever taking liability for anything. And how can anything with somewhat of energy have a contract with someone like us that has got energy? So I'd never really worry about these documents too much, because most people that we're dealing with are like debt collectors, bailiffs, suppliers. Well, if we're dealing with debt collectors, bailiffs, suppliers, we don't need to show them how to write a document as if we're dealing with a judge. So if we're dealing with a judge, we'd have a stamp on the special delivery. We would ask post office to cancel it out. Once it's served back to us and we received it in this, we would then open it, thumbprint it, we'd claim envelope, we'd claim it all, thumbprinting, and then we'd give copies out to these people. But more often than not, we're not dealing with a judge, because we've got to look at court system. You know, why is I'll write this, I'll write it down basically. There's, well, like I said, there's two sides to everything. So if we look at court, we've got a criminal side and we've got a civil side of procedures and rules, haven't we? So under Crown Prosecution Services of 2018, they've got two different jurisdictions. One's civil jurisdiction, one's criminal jurisdiction. Now, if we look at civil jurisdiction as being the legal system, and we look at criminal jurisdiction as being the lawful system. Now, the legal system, which is the civil jurisdiction, that is only for corporations. So the Crown Corporation writes these policies, rules, statutes and acts, and they are only applicable to a corporation. So the legal system is for corporations. And if we're going to send Mr. John Smith the birth certificate name, which is Crown copyright owned and Crown's a corporation, well, that makes us in legal system straight away. So now, if there is no people because there's no man and woman and we're all acting as persons, and these judges are corporate, these police are corporate, courts corporate, and everything's corporate, then even if man committed crime, because there's no people to deal with, they'd have to pull him into the legal system under civil for corporations and do him under Crimes Act because there's no people. So we've got to look at legal system being left on side a piece of paper. So this side is just legal system for statutes and acts and for corporations. So when we're walking on street and we're not unemployed whatsoever, why are we following statutes and acts if we're not unemployed? Police have to follow them because they're unemployed. Council has to follow them, they're unemployed. So does Metrodome, like swimming baths near us. So does Halifax Bank. All these corporations have to follow statutes and acts because they're corporate. And then statutes and acts are what's called legal system, and that's your civil jurisdiction under Crown procedures, right? So they're just tricking us each time to come in as man to stand in this standing. Now, in a civil procedure or legal system, you don't need a judge. A judge is there for harm, injury, loss, fraud, common law, and for people. So if he's only dealing with, or she's only dealing with statutes and acts, which is legal system and corporate system, then they're never going to be on their oath because they're only doing administrative duties, which is facilitating these corporate rules and acts. They're just imposing them onto us by getting us to state his name. And if we said John Smith, have we said it in uppercase letters or lowercase? Well, because we didn't disclose it, their birth cert, guess what that's going to say? It's going to have all capitals and they're going to presume we said that. So now we're acting as that birth certificate, when employed to Crown, meaning we're not in lawful system, we're not in legal system, and then there's no judge because it's just policies, rules, statutes and acts. So we hope that explains a bit of something to somebody between two jurisdictions. So we're getting to know, but we're not ever dealing with a judge really, because we're never in what's called a pure capacity, which actually means no law. We're always in a de facto, which means no fact really. And in a fiction world, you can't ever have facts. So that's why it's called de facto, and it means administrative. Administrative again is legal system, and it's for statutes, acts, and corporations. Now, when we phone Barnsley Law Courts and they tell us there's nobody legally trained, well, there shouldn't be nobody legally trained because it's a fucking law court, not a legal court, in it. Tells you on bastard building, right? So this is what we need to start holding them up against, mate, because if people can't see and differentiate between them two words and what they're actually walking into, then, you know, we need to start waking up a lot more quickly, don't we? And I know people on this, like who we're talking to now, is quite aware of that, but there's a lot of people in this world that's duped on a daily basis because if there weren't, the system wouldn't still be running. And this is where we need to get these messages out. So hopefully, if people can learn to acknowledge what a notice is, and they can recognise what a notice is when they receive it, then they're going to respond to it within 3 to 10 days. So on back of this, we have put a guide of certain things on what to, I mean, like we've put here, we must rebut any notice within 3 days, but we can go to a maximum 10. Now, if we use that second paragraph, because let's just, like I said, we've been on holiday 2 weeks, we can write there, we can make it up to some degree, can't we, because nobody knows, and we can make us in that likely time frame. So if we are returning outside of this time frame, then we must write on our notices the day we receive them and then return within 3 days of this time stating this fact. So we've wrote it on back even that. Now, we usually write in letter size 12 on everything and then letter size 14 for header. If we're not going to write in 12 and 14, then in basically in legal world, they'll write in size 11 and up here and size 12. And they'll also use Roman numerals, and there's many different structures and how you can have that language. We can all change that language how it's written in bold in different ways, isn't there? So they use, so in legal world, that's knowledge I had that I did years ago when I've not really touched on it since because it's bullshit for me and it's a fiction world. But we did help many folk in it at time. So ultimately in their system, they're not going to recognise any document. If we're going to write as a fiction to a fiction, then we've got to do it using 11 and 12 structure. And we've got to use it doing other certain principles within that jurisdiction of civil procedures, because court and corporations, just like we know, it's all about procedures and rules. But we're not so much here on this channel tonight to talk about corporate procedures and rules and stuff. We're more here telling people about a basic notice. So we'll get back to basic notice. And as long as we, like we said, included this paragraph means that we're honourable. And by including this, we're not committing perjury. And by also asking them to do it in the same manner, leaves them rendered and decapitated from being able to respond to us, because they cannot write. In a fiction world, you cannot write in a fact structure. So they can never disclose to us what language they're speaking other than corporate fucking babble, because that's what it is. So now we've also put, we must write to the man or woman using a brown envelope and a special delivery, just like we've showed you. And I don't know if you can remember what the word special means in law, but it's the only one word in law that means private. Special means private. So we then scan the document when autographed, and we then send a copy in brown envelope to them. We always keep originals. The only way we'd never keep an original is if we send in a promissory note, but I'm sure that's quite obvious. We do not have to accept mail in any form, and we can deny accepting any special mail that is doing anyway. When Royal Mail come and they're knocking us door and they say, do you want to accept this mail? Well, it's up to us whether we say yeah or whether we say no, we're not interested, mate. Now, that's same for recorded delivery, but we've got to look at recorded. Reason why recorded is a scam is because RE, when you understand Latin, RE means no. It means it's a negative context. Like if we look at move and remove, then RE in that tense, it makes it negative. So it doesn't actually mean the word no, but it makes it in a negative context, giving it the meaning of like without, which is also like no. So RE meaning no, and DE in it recognise it same manner. Just because it's backwards, I DE, it just is DE backwards. So it means no code no, which means it's a no word. And obviously in contracts, we're not going to have no words. So we're not going to have recorded, and that's the scam. And they're the orange labels. We don't use them. Now, special is the only word for private, like I said. So like I'm saying, when mail comes, we don't have to accept that mail. Now, when mail comes using first or second class stamps, even when we open them, how can anyone prove that we've opened a first class or a second class stamp? So in any capacity, sometimes courts send us envelopes that's blank like this, so we don't know where PO boxes and stuff. And sometimes we can open them and we can basically accept into a contract that we don't know really much about because they've hidden it. So this is where structure on back page comes for if we're ever dealing with a judge. By putting a stamp on back and on back, that means that if the judge ever turns this document over because he don't like it, he now can't pretend it's a blank page because it's been claimed with a correct name structure upon it by a man with his thumbprint or a woman with a thumbprint. So that's why it tricky. So
why do we need two stamps on it? One on top and bottom of that.
We'd put three in this sense to a judge because the more value we've got on something, the more valuable it is. But depending who we're dealing with will depend what stamp we put on it. Because there's no point serving a solicitor in the capacity as a judge because they're not going to, they don't know what procedures of a judge are. So they're going to recognise that. So we're better going in at whatever structure we're dealing with. So if it's some guy at council, there's no point showing them how to be a judge because they're not going to recognise it. We're better just writing a notice to some paralegal or something like that, mate. There's no point even making it goods, just put a special delivery stamp on it and serve it that way. So we're just showing people highest capacity of what we do if we're dealing with a judge. But if we're on lower level, we don't have to add them stamps and stuff. Most important thing is these two paragraphs, this paragraph here, how we autograph it, and then depending what as blah blah is. Now, we don't have to put a stamp. We could just include that special delivery label there. We could just put label on it because we're dealing with a bailiff or something. Now, by adding that label there proves there's something in that envelope, doesn't it? That's all it does. It just proves, because we don't like to be challenged on many things. So, I mean, we like to be challenged, but the less we are challenged, the more correct we are. And the more we go through life and the more we learn, the more correct we are actually doing. And this is why we're trying to teach people this way. Because if we can all write and copy this structure and use his own pen, you know, his own pen ink and his own energy is far stronger than what a computer's is or a keyboard's is. You know, as much as it's our arm extending out into that technology, making it work, there's no better structure than this. Now, we write in a computer, and we've always done it because no one can ever prove our documents exist anywhere else, because we write them unique, or we always did do until we started giving them out to different people, like on this channel, and helping people, which is what we're meant to do. So if we're going to write a document like this and it's going to be in the same structure by many people, then we need to do it in his own pen ink, because now we can't ever be called for copying it anywhere. I mean, if we're going to write his own personal private notice that we're not going to show or declare to anyone else, and it's not going to exist anywhere, then obviously a computer's going to do a trick. But if we're all going to copy this structure, then we're all going to use his own blue pen ink. And what that means is we're now all creating his own notices individually, and we're all starting to become competent, which this world don't want us to be. And it is a basic notice structure, like I'm saying, but why do we have to rebut all 20 things on their document if we can just rebut one by saying we are not you, we are we, so we return this document to you to give to you, full stop. Just something stupid, because it is a game to us. You know, at the end of the day, when these corporations ring us up or knock on us door, they're getting paid for their time. Are we getting paid for our time when we're dealing with them? No. So our energy is valuable to us. Their time's not valuable to them. So as much as we're doing it, we're having fun. We need to limit it, really, because, you know, we need to give his energy to his grandkids and to other people and sense like that, not no fucking corporation. So we're hoping that this has helped people on how to write notices, how to keep it into private, and how to add value to it, and how you could send it in a structure to capacity of a judge, or even if you wanted to send it without stamps and stuff, just as a notice to a lower end bailiff or something like that. Depends how you want to do it. So I don't know if there's any other questions on that. I don't even know where you have a look at chat. What questions? Can you see any questions, Rich?
No, there's no one, mate, I don't think.
So,
Max,
have you got Rich, did your notice, didn't you?
Your brother?
Have you got out to add from that notice you've just created?
No, not really, mate. Like I say, me and Naj was just Naj couldn't come on tonight because he was, well, we was in here while 1:30 this morning, just doing notices and redoing them and stuff like that, and going over a lot of stuff. We hadn't done it for that long, mate. It was a bit mad, really. Do you know what I mean? But it was good, even when we went back to older ones and stuff. The stuff that we'd put in them and that, it was good. But no, not really, mate. There's no. It all depends what it's for, doesn't it?
It does. Well, thanks for the feedback, Richard. I'm glad that it's helped you. And course will proof check a document for you, mate. You've just got to send it over, pal.
You want to proof check now?
All of us here can proof check others, I'm sure. You what, Rich?
I said, what you say? You want to proof check, man?
No, there's a guy at bottom called Richard that said that great knowledge in chat. Thanks for the video. And can we proof check one of his notices tomorrow? And I'm just saying, yeah.
All right, yeah, sound. Well, we all have to proof check.
Richard from Derby.
You proof check out. Why is it Rich from Derby? Why haven't you got your face on, you miserable git?
He's been quiet, isn't he, mate?
No, mate. He's never usually quiet.
He says he's too ugly, mate. Fucking hell. It's people are here for knowledge, pal. They're not here for faces.
No.
I'm here to look at Rich's wallpaper in background, I tell you now.
Tell you, mate, I know I've been back on my toes for a couple of days helping one of my mates out tonight. My back's in tatters, man.
Oh, fucking hell, let's get violent, Art.
I couldn't get on I couldn't sit on my usual chair or stool because my back's fucking smashed.
Oh, it's because you're doing it, isn't it?
You what, mate?
Because you're not used to doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it, innit? We choose other things in life and different things come in our paths, don't they, and all like that. So, yeah. But yeah.
Used to a swivel chair now, aren't you, pal?
No, I've still got to get one for the office, man. Them wooden things aren't no good now. I don't know if that's done help to do it, you know what I mean? It's like Chinese, don't you?
Camper jobs, mate, with cup holder.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, it's, no, just like I say, just back on my tools for a couple of days, just helping a mate out. I said I'd do it for the next couple of weeks for him. Obviously for a donation, because we don't work for money anymore and stuff like that, because we can't do it for tax purposes and stuff, can we? So we can't be having any of that.
No, mate, donations or contributions are untaxable, Rich.
That's it, kid.
But
Is it paying you in gold and silver or the promissory notes?
Well, we can, no matter how it comes across, we can always swap one into the other anyhow, can't we, Ray?
Yeah.
So we can always turn a fiction into substance, can't we? We just how we choose to do it and what we do.
Yeah, we accept gold and silver, but we give promises, Ray.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, you've got out to add to it, Alan. Any questions at all on what we've said? Or
No, I think just need to let that digest, I think.
Yeah, it's all right, mate. I mean, obviously, I just wanted to, I don't expect everyone to remember everything from this, but this is why. I mean, I've created this basic structure because we don't need to write a 10-page document. We don't need to confuse ourselves that we need to be super clever to deal with these corporate entities. Once we realise that we can stand competent and we can start writing things ourselves, and then that power starts to rise within each and every one of us, then these corporations are going to start losing that power. Because if like, it's like I said to people, Alan, if you received that through your letterbox, what would you think?
What, a blank sheet of paper?
Yeah, what would you think?
I think someone's made a mistake.
But as soon as we had words up on it, people shit themselves.
Yeah.
It's really, we've got to look at it in that structure, mate. Are we really scared of words on paper?
No,
because what they're going to do, what they're going to do. It's not about what they're going to do. It's about what we're going to do. Because if we're not competent, they're going to walk all over us.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to stand. And like Ray said earlier, you know, he's got that he's going to start to write a notice. It's really admirable that anyone wants to write, because we know we're wasting his time with these fucking idiots most of the time. But it's a learning curve for us, and it gives us power inside each time we create something, knowing that we've done that. Nobody asked us to do it. We chose to do it, and it gives us power each time we do it. So real big hats off for you, Ray. I mean,
so
you've been years, Rich. I said you've been doing notices years, like, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's mad though, isn't it? It's like we were saying, I got a load of my old ones out last night, obviously on computer, because even when we used to handwrite and we used to do them on computer first, then it's easier to copy because you don't have to. There's not worse than doing handwriting ones, and then you get halfway through and you've done whatever you get down to, and you do 3 balls up, and it just looks horrendous, man. So you end up starting again or whatever. So I always used to write them on computer, save them, and then you can always go back and edit them as well, can't you? And just use bits. Do you know what I mean? Take that part with that one, that part with that one. But it's mad because me and Nige last night, what about some of my elders? And like I say, it's just a game, isn't it? It's just having fun, really, to be fair. That's how I used to see it years ago, and see what he was going to get back of them. So we used to do 3 and 4 and 5 page notices. Last night was having a competition, see how small we could get it. Well, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need, get rid of that. We don't need that.
Well, there's something I forgot to say, and that is, on the back of a document, particularly when it's 1 pages, when we write his name across there, like :John, :Smith, full stop, and then we put his autograph and stamp. Reason why that's important is because in old times, a document would be a scroll. And when you scroll document up like that, and you've got name, you would have that name endorsed along there, and then you'd have the wax obviously sealing it, so that this guy knows it's been received in perfect tact and condition, and that none of that has been altered or corrupted. So by us writing on back, it also endorses it, just like what it does as a check in that sense.
Yeah, and stops them writing anything on it or putting anything to it.
Another real important thing is that this is only this is 1 page of 1 page. We're disclosing that it's 1 page of 1 page. Now we've got to look in old times, and not even in old times, they're still writing this day and age, but they're writing massive scrolls. And that scroll might be 10 foot long, might be 3 foot long. Well, if we're writing on A4 documents and we've got say 10 A4 documents, then for us to make that be like a scroll is we need to add as page numbers. So it'd be with this page 1 of 10, with this page 1 of 9, with this page 1 of, and if we don't write them, then there's no discontinuation or evidence in sentence structure between one piece of paper to other. Now they might just write 1 or 2 or 3. That what the fuck's that mean? You know what I mean? But anyway. So if there is no page numbers, we don't even know how long document is. All's very good, Richie lad. So yeah, that was just something important that if we are going to add more than 1 page, then we need to add how many pages are in this type of structure with this page 1 of only 1 page, full stop. It'd have a full stop and an hyphen if there were 2 page, because we'd be continuing on to the next page, wouldn't we? We couldn't just have a full stop at end of page if we're continuing to page 2. So on this notice, there's no hyphens on this side because this is just script for me to write from. But document that Rich is going to put up onto channel it's all hyphenated because we've got to continue from one sentence structure to other. If there's no hyphen connecting that sentence to this, there's another discontinuation or evidence in sentence structure. It's almost like having 2 spaces between words. If like on their documents, they always write many 2 spaces between words. Now they're going to do that because in English rule, 2 spaces constitutes as a full stop. And if we had a full stop in middle of a sentence, we're going to stop discontinuation evidence in sentence structure again, aren't we? So I just thought I'd add them important points while I was thinking about it.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, that was interesting, that bit.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, Alan.
So yeah, just that was interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, they're just important little things, but I've forgot more than I know, Alan. People need to ask me questions sometimes.
Yeah.
Andrew, just one other thing as well. Do we just make sure everyone knows we have to write in the present as well, don't we? That's something we've just learned this week, to make sure, following these rules, we have to always make sure we're writing as present, living, essentially.
In the now time, yeah.
Yeah.
In this, well, it's in this here and now time.
Yeah, we can't write in past and we can't write in the future, can we?
Now, it's also important because on bottom of document you can hear that we're using the word and quite a lot, and we never use the word or are. So like we're putting for this definition and rule, and of the best of our knowledge and belief, and with this sound mind, and a strict condition. The reason why we use and instead of or is because and or they're just what's called a conjunction. They're just a conjunction between 2 words. So we've got a choice. Or is an option, and is a command. And if we spell the word command, the word man is in command. So man and command, we never use the word or unless we're a person, a corporate entity, or a fiction. Or it's just an option. We give commands, man give command, doesn't it? So that's just another important. Now, if we're writing this in private capacity, this is something else we could add. If we're writing this in a private capacity, but we're going to include one of their statutes and acts, for example, we're rebutting a traffic document or something like that, and we're going to put, say, for example, definition of person in Black's Law Book edition 4, page 585, like one employed. We're going to use some language that's not Oxford Styles Manual. If we're going to use something like that in there, then obviously it needs to be in speech marks or brackets because we don't want to be liable for it. But if we use in public, if we're writing and addressing in private capacity, but we're using public words, then we've got to add the paragraph and make it with this public and private partnership notice now here constructed in this here and now time, for example, full stop. Because we can't mix public and private without making partnership. So Now, if anyone's seen as 1888 Local Government Act notice, I don't know if Richie's got it out there anyway, but
Yeah, we've got to put, well, we've got it, haven't we? But we've got to put it out onto the channel, haven't we?
yeah, well, because we're talking a bit more complex now. We're past a bit basic writing notices now when we talk about this, but there's something called inclusio est alter exclusio, and it means that if we include one thing, we exclude another. So if we talk about birth, when it says a birth includes a stillbirth, then if it includes a stillbirth, it must exclude a life. So if we're like on a Local Government Act, it's 2 pages basically. Page 1 we're rebutting Local Government Act, and we're saying that we're using New Oxford Styles English. But on back of it, on page 2, we've got a picture of the UK government legislation, 1888 Local Government Act, section 79, paragraph 2. Well, if we're writing New Oxford Styles English, but on back's legalese, we can't really use the New Oxford Styles English unless we do something like this. So on this, we put that with this document being constructed in New Oxford Styles English, including this, our page 1. Well, if we included page 1 for it, that meant we excluded page 2 for it. And they're just clever little tricks, what we can use on them, just like they've been using on us for fucking years. I don't know if you got that. Did you get that?
Yeah. It's also, like you say as well, and it even just the daft thing, what I never even picked up on over years and years, and it was only when we first started talking, wasn't it? And that when you put private and confidential on, then you can't go putting public acts and all like that, because you can't include public acts on a private notice.
Unless you've got with this public and private partnership in this here and now.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. But a lot of people don't even realise that. You know what I mean? Even when you're doing notices for yourself, a lot of people just put private and confidential, don't they? And then that excludes all. Then you're trying to ask them for the Companies Act 2006, Section 44, and all like that. You can't. They can ignore it on purpose, can't they? Because you've put private and confidential, so anything public on there without putting the other bit on excludes all that. They don't have to do it. You up, brother?
Can't see fiction. I mean. Obviously, I just wanted to. We've gone a bit advanced into this now talking. I just wanted to do a basic notice for people, but if we want to talk about it on that level, then it's even down as far as this, Rich. And you've got to be that intrinsic when you're doing these documents with people, because, like I said, there's 2 with everything. Well, that includes government then, government, shadow government. That includes Treasury then, Treasury and Department of Treasury.
Yeah.
So we've got to not just write to correct capacity, we've got to write to correct area, because if we get any one of these wrong, fact can't see fiction and fiction can't see fact. It's just how it is. There's that many different things to it, but obviously we're talking about advanced things now on this, and I just wanted to show people how to write a basic notice. We have talked about advanced things and structures on it, and people can learn from it, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we can do more advanced one, can't we, in time?
Well, we've just covered it, really, Rich. There's not much more, because, not knowledge is not the power on itself, mate. Knowledge is not wisdom. Knowledge only becomes wisdom when you've got experience from that knowledge. Mm-hmm. So if we've given people knowledge of how to create a basic notice, and we've given them 3 structures, we've given them heading, we've given which side to put creditor and debtor, we've put which side to sign and thumbprint, creditor and debtor, and then we've included stamps making it goods, and then special delivery putting it into postal mechanics, allowing them goods to be carried on postal roads and shipping lanes. Then there's, we can write an 100-page notice, or we can write a 1-page notice. I'd rather write a 1-page notice to a corporation, and I'd rather give that 99 pages of time to my grandkids. But I'll still write that 1-page notice, because the more simple we can make it, the more time we've got. But I'm always going to act honourable, though, and I'm always going to rebut them within a timely manner. So, and everyone's going to be written in a different structure depending what we're rebutting. So, I mean, like James has got a unique notice that no one else will ever see or have. It's unique to James. It's from that notice, James can. I'm sure you could write many notices from that, James, couldn't you?
No. We're slowly understanding it. Takes time.
In that sense, if we were to put that, if James were to put that notice out, what he did for people to use, they could only ever then handwrite them, because otherwise they could say it's been copied off that and that's been copied off this. At minute, James has got full proof of claim that no one can find that document anywhere other than in his filing cabinet or wherever it is. So I just want to explain the difference where if we are writing on a computer or if we're going to write by hand. And it's quite easy that if it's unique and there's only one of it, don't matter on computer, we've got full proof of claim. But if we're going to write on mass levels using these same 3 paragraphs, for example, we need to do it in by his hand. And it's so important, as long as we've got them 3 paragraphs, we're honourable, we're not committing perjury, we're never going to get in trouble for out, we're acting as man, we're also being player outside of Monopoly board, but we're never being character. And this blah, blah, I really would put just one rebut. It depends what it is. If it's council, for example, we'd put, we believe under the Local Government Act 1888, section 79, paragraph 2, all duties and liabilities become duties and liabilities of the council, for example. If it were traffic, then we'd put, for example, we believe the definition of the word person exists in the Black's Law Book and is a legal term for corporate entities. Please could you stop writing to us for we are man or woman and we are not corporate entities. And I'd correct them on the mistake. You could even correct them because they're going to address Mr. or Mrs. like Jane or John Smith, then we'd put them with this conditional notice of correction, and then we would put with this correction of the structure of our given calling being full colon John, full colon Smith, or full colon John of the Smith family, and not to be used by being put together, or that makes 2 facts become 1 fiction and is therefore fraud, full stop. There's that many things we can put in this blah, blah. It depends what we're rebutting. And I don't want to confuse people too much. So best one to rebut absolute every presumption on that document is as simple as what we've said to you. And that is, we believe you have made a mistake, for you have sent this document to we, and we are not you, we are we, so please give this document to you. Full stop. Simple as that. And it's just taking piss, really. But isn't that what they're doing out of us by pretending that we're a birth certificate name that's got no energy itself when there's actually fucking energy in here? So, yep. You know what I mean?
Richie, you shared that thing other day we talked about on Monday about that woman who sent about council tax and she got a letter back saying she'd been taken off. Do you remember?
Ah, right, yeah.
So could we put that sort of in between these paragraphs we're just talking about now?
You can put whatever you want, Alan, but if there's someone else wrote something, and I'm sure she'll have wrote it in a computerized manner, then if you're going to duplicate something out there, you need to put it in your own penning.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you've got full proof of claim, and you could always challenge that she copied it from you, mate.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we can do what we want, can't we? That's what we say. Like, 99% of my notices now, I just go back to my old ones and just pull stuff out here, there, and everywhere, and just make it into a new one completely.
He's like Paul Daniels, isn't he? He's always pulling start at art, isn't he?
I need to pull a new back out at a minute, man.
Oh yeah, we fucking done a minute. Get back on that swivel chair, mate. It leaves back in.
You sound like me. I've got a bad back today. I was doing a bit of building yesterday.
Yeah, it's no good, mate. It's no good. Years and years of doing it. It's no good at all. No good to man the beast.
How's Graham doing? Is he going to unmute his button and give us some feedback then, or what?
Yeah. It's all good. I'm just
You've been under the weather, kid, haven't you?
Yeah.
As much as people's met Graham, we've got obviously Rich here that runs Hull office, does a fantastic job with Nigel. We've got Ray in middle, or is it middle on our screen, who's going to be setting an office up in Leicester, doing another fantastic job. And then we've got also Graham. And then we've got Graham down here that's going to be setting another office up northwest. So it's going to be a is going to be a familiar face for anyone in good who wanted to become part of this, or what we believe and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Joining the mobile club with Kelly.
Where he's going to become a big part of it, just like what everyone is with this, mate, because we're all equal as each other, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. But it's just good growing it, innit? And moving. It's just good to be on it from the get go, innit? And just make it bigger, better, and just Everybody who comes into it, mate, as well. You got to say, haven't you? We ain't had one bad person. Well, fucking person. We ain't had one good man. We ain't had one bad man or woman come in that office, you know, mate. Everybody comes in, goes out happy as Larry. They all learn a bit. We have a good crack with them and all like that. It's nice to do.
The choice, Rich.
It's the face-to-face as well, isn't it?
It's what, mate?
Who, me?
I don't know. Max Headroom's kicking in and out again, isn't he?
I said it's the face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to get into a group where you can just talk freely without watching what you're saying, because you're going to get mucky looks from supposedly your friends.
Yeah.
Is the best way to write a note? Not there's no best way, but is it by hand?
Well, your pen ink is far more. Your energy into something is far more stronger than a computer. But main thing why we set to use pen ink is because our pen and our ink is a unique structure to anyone else's. Whereas the computer, we can say that, you know, I can type this here. You could go and handwrite this, Graham, at home. You could go and handwrite the same document at home, and then go and take it somewhere and say, this guy here has typed this and copied off my handwriting. And how would I ever be able to prove that I've not? So if you wrote something with your pen ink, you've got full claim to it because it's your handwriting, and nobody can really copy that, or it becomes fraud, doesn't it? So, but reason why we're writing computers is because systems fiction, it recognizes it far better. And if we've got proof of claim to a document that no one else has seen on internet, it doesn't exist anywhere else, nobody else is going to use it, then by us having that proof of claim, don't matter whether we've done it on computer or pen ink or what, we've got that proof of claim. But if we write a notice and then you copy that notice and then Rich copies it and Ray copies it, well, who's created it?
Yeah.
By doing it in his own pen ink, we've all created it in that sense, haven't we?
If we do it in pen ink as well, we can't do joined up words.
How it ultimately works is it's we've got to look at it again. We look at it like a picture on wall or like a book. The author is what's known as the owner of, and if we look at author, it's got AU in periodic tables for gold. So the author is always the owner of. Now, if I've got a document here and you've got exact same document, who's the author of it and who can prove it? If you've got it wrote in your pen ink and I've got it wrote in my pen ink, then we can say we've all individually created it. We can prove it with his own pen ink. But if we've both got it in this structure, then one's copied off other in their eyes, and we can't have no challenges in a fact world, can we?
Yeah.
Does that? So yeah, now hopefully from this, we're going to get people to start writing their own notices. Now, as much as this might be the same, and this one here, this blah, 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 it's going to change every time. So
totally unique, isn't it?
So unique document, doesn't it? Because the author, who's the owner, means that they understand what it means. This is why it's so bullshit in their system. Because, like, let's look at a solicitor, let's look at a judge, let's look at a copper, let's look at all these people, soldiers. They all take oaths, don't they? And this oath, let's just say we're going to join into one of them positions. We're going to get given an oath that someone else has created and written. There's not going to be no dictionary disclosed with it. And then I'm meant to read that out. How can I fully know or understand what I'm reading out or what my oath means if I didn't create the bastard?
Yeah.
So in that sense, if we're going to stand in the same structure, then if we've got a unique notice, we can prove that there's only us done it, but no one else can.
I will admit though as well, especially when you write them as well, it's over the year it sinks in miles better. You know, whatever you're writing on a notice or whatever, and even if you're learning from start and it's the first thing you've ever done, if you write them out all the time, you start remembering why you've put that in there and why you've put that there and why you've done that. When you do it on a computer half the time, you're not there, are you?
Well, I'm just going to help Richard to his question. So for Richard's question, he's gonna put with this conditional notice in writing of the disclosure of the original contract, full stop. So of the disclosure of the original contract, full stop. In your blah, blah, blah down here, Richard, obviously you delete all your blah, blah, blahs, and you're going to write with this conditional acceptance notice of us offering to pay the full amount due within 72 hours of receipt of the original contract, full stop. So that means again that you're going to be honourable because you're offering to pay, but you're only offering to pay when they provide original contract, which computer's going to send out in it.
They've only ever got a one-sided agreement.
So does that help you out, Richard? I'll give you a heading and I'll give you a paragraph. If not, I can say something else or whatever. But yeah, no, that's spot on, mate, because obviously there's no contract between them at minute, is there, pal? So what they're doing at a minute is they're back to when I started this call off, and they're going to offer that first presentment. That means that it's only implied at minute because it's got their terms and conditions, and you've not received it yet. So you receive it, and now you write that what we've just said on it, and you're rebutting that in a timely manner, Richard. And you're also obviously you're honourable, and balls in their court, pal. It's one of them, isn't it? One of Richie's favourite.
Yes. That's going on as good t-shirts, that on the back.
A picture of Billy Casper.
Just giving it that.
It is though, isn't it? Some more ideas what we've got, and I think we've said to a few people is whenever we receive these presentments and we're going to cross out in window, scribble out name, which is deceased entity in coffin. Obviously, we're just not going to write tombstone act as that dead entity yet. So when we cross that name out of window and we write return to sender, we've got to look at this envelope here, front and back. It's already been paid for, and by us putting it back in post box, it's already been paid to go return to sender. So we've got to see it as a free advertisement board, because many in Royal Mail and many people will see it, and it's a free advertisement board that these people are paying for. And the more they keep sending us free advertisement boards and we keep filling these boards in and sending them off, like we can write definitions of driver in Black's law book, we can write absolute anything what you're going to expose of. It don't matter how small you think it is. Instead of put just return to sender, write return to sender in big bold letters in brackets, and then fill front and back as much as you can with as much information as you can, and also put a nice little thumbs up at bottom and saying cheers for paid postage.
That's what we're going to start doing, isn't it?
Why not get his message out in any other way that we can, you know what I mean? It's a free advert for us, isn't it?
It's all we've been doing for the last 6 months, isn't it? I can't remember the last time we opened one.
Yeah, it's more important to how much information. And I have put pictures of how we dealt with one, front and back, and we covered every part of it. And we were quite impressed with it. We were laughing for a couple of hours when we were writing that. It's funny when you put
that on the channel or out for people.
Is what?
Did you put that on the channel or anything for people or out, or you just done it?
I didn't want to put it on channel because it's got full details. I've not fully crossed it off in window, but if I've got
I don't mean on the channel. I mean on the members.
No, but I'll cross address and I'll put it up, mate, because it's pretty good. James liked it.
Yeah. We're sending one back with a similar thing. Actually, we're just in the process of doing it now. So yeah, we're just filling it all in.
How good does it feel doing it?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We just don't want it coming back again, though. It's good when it just disappears and never comes back.
Show your kids when you're doing it, mate. They'll learn at a young age.
Oh yeah, they're getting their heads around it now. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, are they into book like?
They're definitely getting it. It's slowly but surely. We're trying to understand it ourselves first, so we can pass it on. But yeah, at least we're going through. We're doing like 10 pages a night and just going through it. And yeah, it's getting there. We have to read it about 20 times to get it there, I think, sometimes. But it's
it's
still that idea though. Just keep going back to the start again, innit, and going back through.
Yeah, not so much book. It's knowing the callings and the correct birth dates and the correct born dates and knowing who they really are, isn't it?
Yeah, they know all that. They know how to sign their names and stuff now. Yeah, they know how to do all.
Yeah, I must admit they was brilliant in the office. Yeah, them over half the adults that come in, man. Straight on it, weren't they? There was ace.
I know, that's because they've had to do it on all our notices. They've done it on themselves, their names and stuff. It's been good. Yeah, their callings. It's good.
No, it was brilliant.
This is it gives us hope. That's next generation, mate, innit? That gives me hope, that pal. Things like that gives me faith.
Yeah.
But
I think like you say, they're the future, aren't they? So they've got, if they grow up knowing this, they won't know any different, will they, really? They'll just be second nature to them.
Yeah, but it's down to loving their parents why they're in this position though, James, isn't it? So take your hats off to you and your missus, pal, really, as well as them.
Yeah. It's tricky at times, but yeah, we'll get there. So
are you gonna share what you and Nigel did on your masterpiece then, Rich? Or
no, because it's on computer, mate, and right out. Yeah, we finished. One just doing that was doing, the.
He don't want nobody to copy it, Ray. He wants
to
keep.
Couldn't give a knack, mate. Anybody who comes to the office ends up walking out with half a margie, mate. I'm not bothered.
One of them take good bits.
How we can bring any of it down, man. It can all have it, you know what I mean? Even the stuff with the bailiffs and all that. That was from donkeys ago. That when people have been asking for that, so I just thought you can have it. You know what I mean? If it helps people have a bit more confidence dealing with bailiffs on phone or even when they're at your door, you can use that or anything. You know what I mean?
And there's about 15 or 20 people that I know, mate, over this past that's starting to write, like in the like what Ray's done the other day, what you've done, and like with they're concentrating on what they're doing, and they're not just writing something and said that they're actually they understand what's on it and what they're sending. And
yeah. Well, that's what I said to you when they handwrite it sinks in a lot more as well.
It does, but when you grasp it, I'm sure everyone's got cousins, nephews, or anyone that we can always pass knowledge on, can't we?
Yeah.
If there's no more questions on this basic notice writing thing, then I'm going to get off and stop recording, but we can obviously have a little chat after if you want. You want to stop recording, Rich? I don't.
Yeah, we'll do, mate.
See you later, guys. We'll help you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers,
see you later.
Okay.
Take care.
Take it easy, lad.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Catch you later.
Thank you.